Hey everyone, it's Ben Cicchini, founder of Give and Grow, here with another episode of the Give and Grow podcast. For those of you guys that are new listeners, this is where we dive into topics around social emotional learning, mental health, solving our stress. Is going to be a main focus of today with Donovan Dryer. Donovan is a life coach, business coach, school counselor with his MA in school counseling, and he's also the innovator of a really powerful global system for solving stress. So I'm super excited to dive into more about his system and how it's helpful for parents, educators, and influential adults with their kids. So Donovan, how you doing today?
Great, Ben. Thank you so much for having me on. And how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man. A little stressful to start off the day, so I'm really like excited to learn more. Just kind of, last night had a little like not argument, but just like disagreement with the wife. So like trying to process some of those emotions going into day, I'll say, and to be completely transparent.
Well, way to be completely transparent, because that's part of the thing I needed to devise a system for. Is like I could read young adults better and better and better with lots of experience, but helping the teenagers become more self-aware and other aware as well, and so that they can actually ask their friends how
Mhm.
they're feeling, how they're doing, and then parents and anybody else who, like you say, is in the business of influencing or leading or helping or supporting or mentoring young adults. They need like a simple system.
Yep, nice. So let's dive into that. Like I want to
You dove right away.
get real juicy with it, Donovan. Like can you tell us about the system that you've created, why you created it? Yeah, I guess we'll start there and how and really how it went global.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got into school counseling because of the Columbine shooting. So that was in the late 90s. And I just decided nobody knows the answer to this. I could open up a magazine and see what some people would say, like Newsweek or whatever at the time. But I thought, now I'm going to put myself right on the front lines. Not that I like to consider the schools the front lines, but obviously that's just that trend has continued. The issues of self-harm and so on have continued as well. So I put myself on the front lines to seek first to understand. I didn't think I had any answers. I didn't think anybody had any answers to such a game-changing situation. So, if we fast forward a bit, I developed that ability to kind of get a feel for how kids were doing, whether they were transparent with me like you were or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not, so that's one of the pieces of, well, how do you crack the code when they're not? And what we need is just a crazy simple system. We talked a little bit beforehand, and I kind of, asked how you were doing. You asked how I was doing beforehand, but how are you feeling? You kind of dove in another level, and you
Hmm.
talked about maybe a unique niche is what we all could bring to the table. The thing we need is a universal, super easily
Hmm.
understood, and visual way to actually assess each other, for that both self-awareness to assess ourselves and other awareness. We don't talk a lot about other awareness, but we do
Hmm.
talk about missing red flags out there. And we don't even know really what that means to miss a red flag. And so people kind of get a free pass all the way up till now with not seeing things that maybe only a mental health professional with that experience could see. So I developed that. That's nice. It's good for one
Hmm.
person in one part of the world to have a system, or at least the experience to be able to get a feel for how somebody's doing or how they're feeling. But what I needed is give other people that superpower. And so I've been doing that ever since about 10 years ago, or a little bit more now. It's 10 years since I did the presentation at the New National School Counselor Conference with this traffic light system. And
Hmm.
obviously, this green, yellow, and red thing has gone crazy. My tire shop is like, these tires are red and your tires are yellow or green. They're never green. I don't know why they're never green even after I bought them, but that's a totally other story. But the numbering system failed to work. I discovered that. And we could get into it a little bit more. I'll kind of weave in those stories of why the numbering system didn't work, why a lot of the color systems are overcomplicated, and why we can't have a lot of different things brought to the table when it comes to clarity. We really need clarity of being able to assess how somebody's feeling and to know what to do about it or what not to do as well.
That makes a ton of sense, and I love that idea of having everybody on the same page with a easy to use system that's just super clear and accessible to everyone. Can you like break down what the red light is, what the yellow light is, green light. Like, what is the system that we're talking about?
Well, let's just think about driving. You're driving in your car and you're at the intersection, the light's green. What do? You're just
You go,
driving straight.
go,
Yeah. And now it's like you're driving along and it's red. What do you do?
stop,
And then what if it's yellow? What do you do?
slow down, might go, might stop.
What do you don't? Yeah, what do you not do? You don't speed up and gun it.
Yeah,
Same thing for red. What do you not do?
run
Red
it.
light, you don't run it. And how about green? What do you slam on your brakes or not so much?
Not so much.
So there's just one thing to do per light. There's one thing not to do per light. So we overcomplicate with all these emotions, all these emojis, a numbering system. So the problem with the numbering system is I had a kid, cowboy hat, belt buckle. He's never going to talk about any feelings stuff in a million years. And he says, I'm going to be a 10 before I even be, caught going into the school counseling office. It's
Hmm.
got to be off the charts, my stress. And I was like, oh, that's a problem because the girl before just said she'd be about a 1.5 and she'd be ready to talk for 2 hours to get out of class.
Right.
So why are you here? Why are you in the school counseling office? There's a reason to be in the school counseling office, and there is not. You should be back in class if you're 1.5. I
Hmm.
think, but if the numbers are open to interpretation that anywhere between a 1.5 and a 9 is the same thing, depending on the student, not helpful. So
Hmm.
the green is super specifically for you've got this. You can DIY it, you can self-regulate. So
Okay.
crossing over to the yellow is super crisp and clear in my system. You can't self-regulate anymore. This has gotten beyond your ability to DIY it. You may or may not be there with your wife in the situation you talked about from
Hmm.
last night. You may be in the yellow. It may be much
Hmm.
better for you to process with somebody. It doesn't need to be a counselor or a therapist at this point, because at the yellow, we just need help, a little help from a friend, like the Beatles say.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so at that point, you're clearly in the yellow because you can't self-regulate. Same thing with a student, and they may or may not have a student, a fellow student, or a parent help them out. We just need a trusted member of our support system at that
Okay.
yellow level to get our inner world green again. So just like the outer world, we like to get it green. We got to get
Hmm.
that toxic inner world green again. And yellow is pretty close. We can get that down with a little help from a trusted member of our support system. So that probably a thing we'll come back to as well. Red means you can keep doing everything you're doing to self-regulate. You can keep talking to somebody you trust, but it's gone beyond that ability for you and somebody in your trusted network to help you. So it's an emergency. The end. Like
Hmm.
that's it. So at the red, I can't just send a kid back to class as a school counselor, or a teacher can't ignore the red flags. We need to get that mental health professional in because it's an emergency. Just like if somebody's like,
Hmm.
this is not an emergency that I've got a, 12-inch gash on my arm. No, we don't debate that. We just go
Right.
right to the hospital because it's
Hmm.
visible and we see it. So I've now made it all visible. And literally kids can point. I've had boys just point where they were, where they are today, where they were
Hmm.
yesterday, where they were the day before. So that's a piece of it as well. Getting a picture with three different how are yous today, yesterday, the day before, or some point in the past. So there's 3 points. So I also see the trend, and the kid
Hmm.
sees the trend, or the parent, or anybody
Hmm.
working with a kid can see that trend. But there's a do and a don't for each level, and that's really how it's crisp and super clear with the way I
Hmm.
teach it and help people get this ability to know what to do just as quickly as you did with the driving example.
Yeah, I love that. I love the ability to make it visual for them. I'm excited to like dive in a little bit more on like what that looks like. I would love even in this episode to be able to like pull up an image of that here just so we can actually see what you're referencing here. But the day before, the week before, how they're trending, all of that makes a ton of sense to make it easy. Um, can you talk about like how uh, yeah, how you're getting people in the red to show up and point, where they're at or oh,
Yeah,
here we go.
I'll
The-
just bring the visual up because it's
let's
visual. So
go.
the visual. Yeah. So here's the big idea is you just have three emojis as well. Obviously, everybody in the world's now using the same three emojis and it's caught on. I stuck a little bit of like a light factor, gave them some hair, so that kind of makes it uniquely like I came up with it or whatever, but that doesn't matter. What really matters is its ability to kind of like last night. Do you think like we'll just use you and everybody who's playing along as we go.
Yes.
How are you feeling right now? Did something
Hmm.
happen for you last night? Where were you the day before? So we'll just take 3 points out of 7 here. We don't need to do the whole week, but I'll start over with right now is like at point 3 if we're going to do 3 points. Right
Hmm.
now is right there, but last night I'm curious about. So if you know you needed to talk to somebody in your trusted network, just a vent maybe, or you were good and you can self-regulate last night, or like, no, this got immediately to the red, and I was all the way to the point of like, I better go get a therapist last night. So where were you at, Ben?
I would say that I was somewhere in that yellow light, but
Okay.
potentially like yeah, somewhere in the yellow.
Let's
Like
just let's just
I
throw
could
it right in the center of
self-regulate.
yellow and not overcomplicate it. So let me just we'll say I'll just draw lines. So you were in the yellow somewhere. I'll just not worry about if there's shades of yellow around. There's definitely not shades of red. Red's emergency, the end.
Okay.
We'll talk about if we have time to, the lower, middle, and high of the green, yellow, and red. But for now, we'll just say, well, this is last night, right? So we're here. Get a little eraser and erase the other one. So that is last night. How about, did you do anything to get out of the yellow? Did it feel like time just passed and you're lower, maybe? Or what do you think today?
Yeah, I've gone on my morning walk. I did my morning meditation routine. So yeah, I've done some self-care and I'm feeling in the green and I know that there's still some conversations to be had. Um,
Okay.
but
Well,
yeah,
let's
I've
actually
done
put you on the border here.
yeah, I
There
like that.
is some movement, but I would say the reason why you couldn't have gotten out of the yellow by yourself is because the yellow literally means you need to process this with someone.
Yeah.
At least vent. You might not need to process it. You might just need to vent. Like you did that
Yep.
already. You at least
Hmm.
shared what was going on last night transparently. And that's step one for all parents too, is just let your kid vent. They might be good
Hmm.
just from that. And that's yellow support.
I
All right,
definitely
how about
like
the day
just
before?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, how about the day before last night? So let's go to
Ooh.
Wednesday.
Uh Wednesday was solid.
All right, you're green.
Was in the green.
So this is literally the X-ray of you. So if we've made this visual now, this threw your stress up. You've brought it back some, but there's only so far you can go to really cross it below the yellow. If it really got beyond yesterday, beyond that yellow, then you'd still be in the yellow, but it's better. It's not as heated, not as
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we recalibrate yesterday and I'm coaching you a little bit on, did you really give me the right answer yesterday? It might have just been high green. You were pushed, challenged a bit, but you just did your morning walk, you did your things, and you went from high green back to the like middle, let's
I don't
say.
know. I think this is pretty accurate that it got like to a point where, that I was a little more like kind of just shut down, so that's why I was thinking it was pretty high yellow. It was like, I'm kind of in my typical like freeze shutdown, not really ready to communicate anything space.
So, what a great jumping off point. Like a minute of education. And now we've got the ability to kind of dial in further, but only because we've got a crazy simple system that I'm not sure we've measured it accurately or put it accurately. And this is just a rough system so everybody
Hmm.
can develop the intuitive sense that the school counselor would have. The
Yeah.
intuitive sense of somebody that's worked for, a couple decades with kids. You, in a minute and a half, have a better understanding of your self-awareness now.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing it too. And I love that I'm able to see, okay, yeah, my stress 100% went up from the day before from Wednesday. Now it's back down a little bit, but there's still room to go. Like I'm loving what I'm seeing here on this screen right now. Super simple.
Exactly. That's the whole idea because we
Hmm.
overcomplicate this. We think like you got to learn how to name your emotions right away. You got to learn what all these emotions and emojis mean. And, how do you snap this or snap that? And what does this, 50,000th emoji mean now that they've introduced a 50,000th emoji and all the emotions in a big,
Hmm.
thick book for mental health? I'm like, no, nope, that's not helpful. Quick, rough idea. I needed to triage better. And, when we can't we can't even be expected to see the red flags, and really, we don't have the self-awareness sometimes to see the red flags. People that are in the
Hmm.
red zone probably need other awareness Somebody else needs to spot those red flags. And then no, I can't even do something about it. I can do something about it, which is to be helpful at the yellow level. But boy, I better encourage them, inspire them to get better help than that because they're in the emergency red zone.
Mhm.
And that's beyond me
Yeah.
to find that
Can
help.
can you talk about that like in maybe in the frame of a parent, right? Your kid, you notice that hey, things are elevated. You may have even had this conversation with them. Maybe you even like had this tool somewhere, and you're starting to get a better understanding of it. How do you like inspire them in that moment to get help? Because I know that can be a huge step and a scary step for people.
Yeah, I had a sophomore girl say she was in the red zone, and a couple days before she was in the green, and she kind of immediately went to the red zone because she got busted and she she did something that morning. So this is like morning, afternoon, later in the afternoon, these three steps. So the
Hmm.
time is variable. So this is really quick. She went to the red zone, um, and she know what did she do? She was in my counseling office. So did she know what to do already?
Didn't doesn't sound like it, no.
She did. She knew to come see the school counselor because
Oh.
she said, I'm in the red zone. So she had the
Ah.
self-awareness of the scenario to see it and spot it. Then we talked, and then essentially she was back here again the same day. Just from us talking, she's back to green. So what a
Hmm.
great visual for me to see other awareness, her to see at the same time self-awareness, and me to know she's better because they don't always say they're better. It doesn't
Hmm.
magically just help them because they went to a school counselor. They might need more significant help. So that
Right.
was the scenario. Here's the thing, though. She never used the chart. We didn't use any visual whatsoever. She had pulled this simple framework into her own mindset, or into her own perspective, to be able to know that simply where she was and what to do about it.
I love
So
it.
cool. And then obviously I could see visually in my mind that she was better. She knew she was better, and so she was good to go. Short
Hmm.
term, not so long in the red zone. For a parent, um, what if they presented green at all three levels? That's maybe a question right now to
Hmm.
make this really interesting
Hmm.
for the parents out there. If we imagine, I mean, I got another Canva with three green faces, but you can imagine three green faces at the moment.
Right.
What if your son or daughter is presenting green no matter what? Kind of like the kid with the cowboy hat and the belt buckle is like,
Hmm.
there's no way I'm coming in here. But how could you overcome that? Because there's a freshman kid that finally cracked this code. But as a parent, how could you actually figure out if they're not as transparent? Everybody's not as transparent as Ben.
Hmm.
Ben, you're like superhuman as a male, just like going right there, getting real with us. So what do you think? What would you do? You now have this system a little bit and you're working understanding. What would you do to really understand what to do if your kid's in the red?
Hmm. It'd be tough. I think my initial idea is like go for the asking like, hey, how are you feeling? Or maybe even before that, trying to just build a connection through something like less potentially like threatening or something a little more safe through a game, through a walk, through a show. I don't, creating that safe space, but then yeah, eventually getting to that point of like, hey, like, how are you really doing?
You did it. You actually recreate, you're the first person to ever recreate that. So how are you really doing? That was the answer. So the kid,
Mm,
I asked like dozens of people, or like maybe not dozens, but I asked quite a few people when I was trying to figure out what to do with green, green, green. Um, and people are presenting a mismatch. And that's what he came up with as well. Like, how are you really
mhm,
doing?
mhm,
There's a howareyourreally.org. So it's really cool when you start to see these things branch out and you see the
mhm,
work, take hold and start to take root in the world. But that's exactly it. So you might say, how are you? And what he said is we just fist bump in the hall and we're like, I'm good. You good? Yeah, I'm good. And that's how we were a little bit before the
right,
podcast.
right.
It's like kicking it off and getting this thing started. And so he said that, well, if you say, how are you really doing? You're not going to start in the hallway,
Mhm,
but it's like this code word at our school that was just used for when we have a moment, I got you. At
mhm.
lunch, open block, whenever we meet again, when there's not everybody around,
Yeah.
It's not embarrassing because it might be two dudes that are just like, really having a stigma against everything emotional intelligence still.
Hmm.
But if they take that now moment to go talk, work it through, then this person reveals they're in the red zone. I've had kids walk the other student to my office.
Mm.
That's amazing. Or at least, how are you really doing says, if it's an agreed upon code word, code saying like that, I care about you and I'm saying the thing that lets you know I will make time and space for you if
Hmm.
you want it. And even that's
Hmm.
already a gift.
Hmm. I love that. So even just posing that question, even if that moment isn't the moment that they're going to give you that really how they're doing, even if that's not the right time, you're opening the door to let them know I'm here and I care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Love
job.
that.
You're the first person. Yeah, that was amazing. You
Th-
deserve some kind of prize for pulling that off because it was a ninth grade kid that cracked the code, and I was like, wow. Because he played me too. He's like, first we fist bump in the hall, and I got the answer, Mr. Dryer. And I'm like, okay, just tell me. And like, what happens after that? And then he's like going on and leaving me hanging. And then he hit that, and I was like, wow, we're gonna make that be a known thing so that the culture of the school
mm.
knows what that means.
How do you go about making that, or how did you go about making that a known thing?
Slowly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So now that these things are catching on more and more, we can speed this up. Whoever's watching, listening right now, we got this chance to speed up and accelerate emotional intelligence, accelerate this ability to have other awareness develop in all of us to the point
Hmm.
where we know, hey, I'm in your support system and you're in mine. We can lean back and forth on each other, or
Hmm.
we know what this code word means. I don't feel like going there today, man. I'm not going to share with you how I'm really doing, but inside I feel like, oh, you care.
Right. Right.
I'm not gonna visibly show
Hmm.
that, but it's just nice to know that you're cared about and loved and you've got something. So things don't catch on like they do on TikTok or on social
Right.
media
Right.
when we're looking to make social innovations in this world. But we needed it yesterday. We needed it 25
Hmm.
years ago. We needed it for all of human history. We needed a system that everybody across the planet could agree upon so that when the red
Hmm.
flags were seen thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, tens of decades of years ago, we needed this way to have the same other awareness and self-awareness. So it's not this nebulous, fuzzy thing that you need to go up to the top of the mountain and get from somebody.
Right. Right. What I love, and I'm hearing it this in just like in the systems development, our human development even is like the patient aspect of it, and that trickling into that question of how you really doing, and there's no force for you to like answer that right now as transparently as you could. We're here for you, and we know this is a challenging process to open up, to share, and so I just love what I'm hearing, this idea of like it's not, I'm not hearing a race to fix somebody or like pry information. I'm hearing a caring friend, professional even sometimes, but really at the core of it, somebody who cares, that is there when they're ready.
Yeah, if we've got a simple system, everybody can get better at this. Our emotional intelligence is the name of the game these days. Our regular old intelligence, I mean, they got AI that passed us really fast on that one.
Real
We still
fast.
need that. We still need that. However, like working with some younger kids, one day it dawned on me working with some fifth graders. I was like, man, I've had these fifth graders because I worked a little bit at a K through 5. I was like, these middle schoolers or these fifth graders have better emotional intelligence than almost every adult I know or I've ever
Mm.
met or just in the
Hmm.
world, generally speaking, because who spends a once a month character ed class learning about emotional intelligence? That's not really a thing. Not if you're older than about 12 or 15 or 20 at this point.
Right, right. So that's really exciting too, that this is being prioritized and taught at these young ages. What has been like your approach to that? Because I'm almost hearing like they, the young kids, as they're learning these skills, but like they can take the lead on a lot of this stuff, and we get to like really learn from them. How to move forward emotionally, intelligently, self-aware, other aware, those sorts of things that you're throwing out today.
Yeah, I would say the first iteration, or the first version, was for older kids because I was in a high school, and so no emojis and no, traffic light with it. But
Mhm.
now just a little bit of shade of yellow, just to not overcomplicate it again. But just to be clear on helping older kids, just like this is a crisis, we don't play, we need to respond. Or hey, let's prevent it because it's pre-crisis. Or look, I know you got triggered, but let's deal with it, get you back to green. What do we need to do to
Mhm.
deal with that trigger? So just really simple approach for the older kids still, but making it a little bit more mature than the one with just the faces. So the faces were really
Mhm.
back in 2016 or 15. There was an elementary school counselor. I hadn't done any elementary school counseling yet, where she was like, "How do we make this work for little kids?" I'm like, "I'm definitely not about to overcomplicate anything right here." And
No.
so that's where the red face, the yellow face, and the green face came about. And I tried to make some characters out of them. Red is stress mess, yellow is slow-mo, and green was Momo. And my daughter made some, my like I think she was 8 at the time, 7 or 8. She made some cute faces and bodies for each one of them. And then like the crazy thing is Inside Out came out at the same time. The
Wow. Wow.
Inside Out. And so that was really, when you get good ideas in the world, when the world's ready for them, they seem like they come from everywhere all at once.
Hmm.
So we just make this simple and more fun. And like I play literally red light, green light if kids are kindergartners, and just start to remind them that they can learn a simple concept like the game red light, green light. And even if there was like the first time I did that when I got my elementary school counseling job, there was like two kids that never played it, didn't know what it was. And I was like, let's just see if something like this is so simple that you just have the critical mass happen. You just have enough kids play a couple rounds and then the last two kids get it, and that's what happens. And that's
Hmm.
where we're at this point right now. Is it's 25 years in the making for me, but for the rest of the world, we're so close, I think, with this emotional intelligence critical mass of people are going to be like thinking like we always knew how to do self-awareness and other awareness, and we do it like this because it's easy as the game red light, green light to learn.
Yeah, man. I really just like appreciate the work that you've done in sharing this and sharing it in your school, the young kids, the older kids, but also sharing it with counselors, across the US and globally, to get everybody on the same page to continue to accelerate this social emotional learning, the emotional intelligence. Trajectory, because I can feel that. I see young kids that I work with like creating videos now talking about like fear and emotions, young men even. It's happening. And so to have a system that's easy to understand to help people along that journey just seems so beneficial. Donovan, is there anywhere, like, kind of in wrapping this conversation up here today, like, is there anywhere that people can potentially find that document or reach out to you, or just like what's the best way for people to kind of tap into to more of this?
I'm on all the socials. So if people message me through Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or any of those, I'm going to answer. So definitely I can just send out one of these forms. On my website, you'll be able to get what have I got there? I've got Dare to Dream. So this is about planning for the future. So let me ask you as we wrap up, kind of coming full circle, Ben, how will you be feeling in the future?
Mm. Well, I know I'll be feeling like processed and regulated. I know I'll also be feeling excited to like be on the other side of that processing and reconnection. And then I know I'll continue to ride the waves as they come with the support of others, my own self-regulation. So I think it's a lot of those things.
Riding the waves, there they are.
Right there they are. Yup.
Yeah, so as we kind of wrap up, in the future, what I saw Bob Bowman with Michael Phelps, I was reading a book and Bob Bowman was stepping on his goggles on purpose, so pushing him into the yellow. Then he was like having him swim in with his eyes closed to see how many strokes it takes to get across the pool. And so he literally was, making waves with his mental health in order to make him to make him able to win 8 gold medals at the US
Right.
Olympics. So when you optimize your mental health and you think about how are you going to be feeling in the future time, this is what in the zone looks like. We don't want to be
Mhm.
too complacent, too comfortable. But now there's a visual for in the zone. So how will be future in the future depends on taking it like parents. There's parents that do so much for their kids with the future in mind. They just want their kids
Mhm.
to be happy. They want their kids to be
Mhm.
healthy. They want their kids to be like, mind, body, spirit, their
Mhm.
heart. They want all these things to be healthy. So if we're future focused with this, that's basically after a little bit of conversation that I can offer as well as an opportunity for parents to just have a sit down with me with their son or daughter. We'll go through Messenger first to see if it's a good fit. But when you think about your future, it's about planning it out for 2025. A lot of what we're doing is for 1925. And if we want to be feeling better
Mhm.
in the future, then we got to make better plans. And that's basically what I help kids with is the transition from nest life to their best life. And
Mhm.
that's got a lot of waves in it. And if you want
Mhm.
it to feel as good as possible, then you plug in people in your support system intentionally, not just potentially a coach, but it could be, as a family member, now you understand what it means to be part of their support system more as a friend instead of peer pressures. We could be dialed in and being supportive in the yellow zone and pulling in friends that are like that, that we're like
Mhm.
thinking about that intentionally. So how we're feeling in the future has a lot to do with putting way more intention on planning it out and getting the support put into place. So bit of a trick
Mhm.
question, but it also kind of dovetails to the work that I do as a coach. It's really about this
Mhm.
biggest transition we make in life from home life out there to the real world.
Yeah, man, Donovan, thank you so much. I hope everybody got as much out of this as I did today. I got my own like personal like exam being the example. Donovan, just really appreciate you and your work. Yeah, so you heard it from Donovan. Find him on all the platforms, Donovan Dryer. Thanks again for your time today, Donovan.
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much. Appreciate this opportunity to just share the exciting things that are in our future for emotional intelligence and taking better care of each other.
Absolutely.